Hello everyone. I'm back. I'm Ahmed Sami, software engineer. Today, I would like also to share with you an overview of anatomy of a URL, or what we call it a web address. URL is a shortcut of uniform resource locators. So why we call it uniform resource locators? Because we are using the URL to locate some resources over the internet. So let's get started by getting into the presentation itself. Just a minute now. Okay, so first of all, what is a URL? URL, as you can see, it's address of a given unique resource on the web. Why it is a given unique resource on the web? That is because each website that you can see over the web, it has a unique name, a unique IP address. So for that reason, URL will be also a unique for these resources because the domain of this website is unique. So in this case, it will be a unique resource on the web. So URL is just address. It's similar to your home address. You can say something like this because your home address is just a unique address specifically for you. So second one, a URL, why it represents a human readable entry point for a website, because it will be very difficult to remember the IP address. For that reason, we are mapping the URL name or the domain name to a unique IP address for this specific website. So it's not easy to remember all the phones of your friends. So it will be much easier to save your friend phone by his name, similarly to how the IP address or how the website name is located, because for each website name we have a unique IP address mapping for this URL. After that, we have a few semantics of this URL. The semantics of the URL, why it's very important, because in the URL which use words can be understood by anyone regardless of their technical know-how. Because if you make your URL not using words, just using symbols, numbers and stuff like this, it will be not easy to remember. So if your website has a name which difficult to remember, that means no one will browse your website or even search for it, because how they can remember the website which has nothing easy to remember. Also, it's easy to manipulate them because if you have a web address, you will just, for example, at the end search by a specific resource inside this website, because already you have a semantic. This web address has an easy name to remember, then it will be very easy to search inside it by some, or even search for this web address on Google or any search engines that you have. So as you can see, it's clarified things for users in terms of where they are, what they are doing, what they are reading or interacting with on the web. When you have your web address, for example, www.example.com/homepage, so it will be very easy to understand that you are already in web on home page. If you have at the end, for example, about us, it will be very easy to understand you are about us. That's one of the semantic rules, to understand where you are and what you are doing. So in some search engine, it will be much easier to map and to search and to classify your web addresses or web pages inside your website, depends on the names. So that semantic is very important for you optimizing for your website to be search engine optimizing. So it's very important to use this. Now we will get into the anatomy of a URL. First of all, you can see that each web address will start with something like HTTP or FTP or anything at the beginning with double dot and slash. That we call it the protocol. So this protocol which identify what kind of resources we are looking for. If we are just communicating with the web, so HTTP will be enough for resource. After this, you can see something like www.example.com. It's a domain name. That's your domain name that your web address or website has to remember who you are. What you see, this number is optional number that you can see here is 80. It means this website is located on port 80. It's optional. Maybe you can see it in some addresses, maybe not, so don't worry about this one. That's we call it a port. Port is a specific place or like a switch for your website to be switched to inside a specific server. After that you have, for example, the resource name or the resource bus. This resource bus which will make you understand where you are or what kind of resourcing you are dealing with. You can see in some places that you have a key, for example, and value for search engine or something. When you search on a website, you can see this question mark. After this question mark, you will see like few characters, then equal, then something, then and %, then something and character equal. That's we call it parameters for search or for get information or post information or whatever kind of information these parameters will hold, and these parameters will be processed on the server side for your website. In some places you can see at the end of URL the mark hash and a few words or something on your page. That we call it fragment. Fragment is a part of your page which you are already directed to, so that we call it a place in the page itself which you are directed to. This kind of URL we call it top level domain, because you can see just the top level domain name and the protocol itself. That we call it top level domain. Why? Because we have another kind of level domain, we call it subdomain. So if you see something like this, www dot, for example, bottom taratata dot bottom taratata .com, the first word it's called subdomain in white. Subdomain it's created why? To organize and navigate to different sections of your website, because in some places you need to navigate to sections or some places on your website, but you don't want this interaction to be on your website itself, so you create a subdomain, something for manipulation. Okay, subdomains, they are not limited, so you can create multiple subdomains, or you can, as you can see, you call it child domains on your main domains. Also, mostly like you can see that creating for testing or staging version of website. For example, you have a website now is live and work, but you want to do some work in your a new version of your website, so you create a subdomain. For example, you can call it www.testmysite.mysite.com. So for this case, subdomain is very good and very useful to test your website version in testing area. So subdomain also used in e-commerce stores, that when you navigate to your main page in e-commerce stores, for example, each company in this e-commerce stores, maybe they will have a subdomain of this e-commerce stores. So you can see in some stores, for example, it's not exactly like www.mymagazine.amazon.com. So my magazine is a subdomain of amazon.com. Okay, so another use, it's a mobile version. If you open your website, for example, or some mobile version site in your phone, because it has a different style specifically for a mobile version, so you can see that on your phone they have a mobile.yoursite.com, for example, that we are using subdomain in. So that was just a quick overview of the anatomy of a URL. I will leave this presentation in the description below this video on YouTube, so please you can check these important links. You can go through them. There you will find more detailed information about the anatomy of a URL. This was an episode among a few more episodes we will capture together to understand how internet works for everyone, regardless of your technical background. It doesn't make any difference from what kind of background you are coming from. So just enjoying these episodes So have a nice time, and let's see you next time for a new overview of something interested over the web. Everyone, have a great time. Bye bye.